podcast holding Trek space for
Black, Indigenous, Brown,
women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and our allies.
Hi, I'm your host, Allison Ordela, and I'm holding Trek space for the struggle, the growth, and the hope. That is Michael Burnham.
Hi, I'm your co-host Claudia, and today I am holding Trek space for folks who are nervous but excited for the future.
Hi, I'm your co-host Maya, and I'm holding Trek space for a little bit of grace, a little bit of gentleness, and the certain uncertainty of now.
Awesome. Welcome all to the second season of the Trek Table. We want to start off this season and each show and start to honor that much of our team and our digital equipment for both the Trek Table and the Outside In YouTube channel are on the unceded lands of the Tongva and the Chumash people. We are grateful to the Indigenous stewards of this land and their ancestors, of those who have come before, those who are here now, and those who will be. We also, so let's just go ahead and I invite folks to find out who's Indigenous, whose land are you on, where you are in the world. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and take a breath in. And exhale. Thank you. We want to say thank you and hello to everybody in the chat who is joining us here today as we hold Trek Space for Women of Color here in front of our live digital audience on Outside In Theater's YouTube channel. Welcome, welcome to all our friends and folks in the chat. So great to see you. Thanks to our partners at Outside In for this opportunity to join the stream here. And we just want to thank all of you who are joining us, whether you're joining us on the archives in YouTube or the Trek Table audio podcast. Thanks so much for being here. We start always by holding Trek space for each other, and we want to ground ourselves in those things. We've asked folks in the chat, in addition to what the table has shared, what are you holding Trek space for? Some folks are holding Trek space for the Picard Season 2 trailer that made them very emotional. People are holding Trek space for air conditioning. Lord have mercy, thank you, AC, says Isil. Jess is holding Trek space, yay! That excited for the buildings and the beginnings that are happening. And Trek space for those who are re-engaging with life in a strange new world filled with people you can actually touch. So as you join us today, we invite you to go ahead and share what you're holding Trek space for. Welcome to all our friends joining. What's up, Puget Zulu? All right, everybody, let's breathe in all these Trek Table things. What are we holding space for? Go ahead and take a breath in. And exhale. Thank you.
Our opening track for this episode is titled Chicana Skies by the band Quetzal off their album Quetzal. You'll be hearing several tracks by Quetzal throughout this episode of Trek Table. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Yes. Thank you to the band Quetzal. We're so grateful to be in community with you so that your music can help bring us into a new imaginary. Welcome, everybody, to episode 17 of the Trek Table. I'm your host and show creator, Allison Ordela. And since we've been gone, we took a break from our season 1 and have reappeared here on the Outside In channel. Since we've been gone, we've had a chance to support and commemorate the resiliency of our Black community as we celebrate Juneteenth. And we acknowledge that these celebrations, these commemorations, these educational opportunities are happening throughout the country still. And so we just want to hold Trek space for that and honor all the things that have happened since last we met. We know that different things have been happening, so we thank you as we hold all the Trek space. We want to say thank you to all of you who are tuning in to support conversations with women of color about Star Trek and our fandom. Thank you for being here. And we're super excited to share with you our little remix version of a recap. So just before we jump in, we want to just share that some of the conversations today that we're going to have might be a little bit intense, the content. We're going to discuss colonialism, assimilation, torture, maybe some abuse or rape. So we do hope that you do what you need to do to take care of yourself as we're in these combos. Welcome to the Trek Table Season 2 launch. We're so excited for you to be here. And our question going into this music is, how do you enter the Star Trek fandom? Can you tell us in our chat? Are you a newbie, a canon head, maybe from a Star Trekking family? Maybe you're a Star Trek femme. Maybe you're a Star Trek zaddy. Let us know. And that was a little bit of 20 Pesos by the band Quetzal. We are back for episode 17 of the Trek Table. We're going to explore the season 1 recap remix in a couple of different ways. We're going to play our version of Recap Popcorn. We're going to have some Trek Table questions for you today. Marie Has Questions is here. We haven't had those in a minute. We're super excited. Claudia's going to help us dish on Discovery design. Maya's got some space runway looks for all of season 1. We're super excited to braid it all together with thematics. And of course, you know, later in the show, we're going to go into that spoiler zone for those of you who are deep into the Discovery world. We'll also have a chance to signal boost some of our favorite women of color content creators and allies, share some final thoughts and some gratitude.
We honor that people may be on their own journey of viewing Star Trek Discovery. So we'll only discuss the things that we can remember have been unveiled up through the end of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
Yes, yes. So let's get into it. Let's check in with this Trek Table assembled. I'm going to ask you, just as we ask folks in the chat, can you share your name, your pronoun, any access check-in, and how do you identify as a Star Trek fan? Claudia, can I ask you to go first?
Hi, yes, this is Claudia. Gender pronouns, they, their, she, hers. Those can be used interchangeably. My access check-in is I have a muscle disorder, so every once in a while I might pull a face. I'm very rarely pulling an extreme face at a Star Trek opinion, and usually I'm just pulling a face because a muscle is pulling me. Other than that, I have got my tea, Earl Grey hot, so all of my access needs are met because I am feeling a little allergies right now. And I am generational Star Trek. My family has been Star Trekking for generations, and I'm passing it along to the nieces and nephews.
Awesome. Thank you. Maya, can I have you on next?
Yes, hi. Well, hi, YouTube. I go by she, her pronouns. My access check-in is my neighborhood is celebrating life and Juneteenth and all the things. So you might hear some noises. And also my co-pilot, Chorizo, is at the ready, sleeping at my feet to bark at anything right when we need him to be quiet. But I identify as Star Trek light, Star Trek femme, and heavily sci-fi curious.
Awesome. I will complete our check-in. My name is Dela. I go by she, he, they, or Dela. I'm a mixed queer Filipinx person. I got my hair did, so I'm super excited. I've got a new cut. And I'm sitting in front of a Filipino malong. So just to give a little visual check-in. My other access check-in is that I am recording near a freeway, so you might hear the trucks go by on occasion, but don't worry. I've been a trekker since I was a wee lass, watching Next Generation, and I would say I identify now as a Trekhead who loves disco, and I love the minutia, and I'm a little bit of canon head, so I don't know. We'll see. So that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about us. If you're in the chat, we invite you to share with us how do you identify in the Star Trek fandom. We also want to say we're going to have a special surprise. Our fellow co-host Marie Ren Velez could not be here for recording, but she sent a video for us. So we're super excited to share that with you a little bit later, and we give shouts out to Marie. The final business before we jump into our discussions here on the Trek Table, we just want to name that we have some agreements. So we want to say welcome to all who enter. Whether you are a newbie or you were raised in a Star Trekking generational family, welcome. Let's build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or even as part of your self-care ritual, which I do, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into Trek space.
Yes, it's a space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the vastness of our fandom amongst the Star Trek multiverse.
Trek Table is also a place for allies to come, engage, and explore as well. This is an opportunity for allies to hold space and focus for insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not be familiar with.
And now that we are all here, we remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand that we're going to disagree, but there's enough hate going on in the world, so we don't need that here. So please keep your phasers on stun.
Indeed. All right, great. So let's breathe in all those agreements. Go ahead and take that breath in. And exhale.
So I would like to start us off with our first Trek table question, posed to here, assembled, and also to those in the Outside In YouTube channel chat. I can't wait to listen and to hear your responses. Our first question is, what was your favorite action sequence of season 1? This can be the ships in the air or the people with the hand-to-hand combat. Give us your favorites. And that was a sampling of Holland Beck Gonzo by the band Quetzal, our theme song today for our Trek Table questions. Question number 1 was, what was your favorite action sequence of season 1? I'm going to try and keep us to what was your favorite? De La, what was your favorite?
Okay, I have a tie. It's either Burnham and Saru battling on Pavo because, he goes hard for harmony, which I love to say, or 2, just the duet of ass kicking with Burnham, Emperor Gigi in the throne room on the USS Charon, or on the ISS Charon, as we called it.
Yes. Yeah, I was about to say we got to keep ourselves to 1 because my problem is I liked so many battle scenes. I love the battle scenes in the sky, the hand-to-hand combat. So I'm going to calm myself down. Maya, what was your favorite action sequence of all of season 1?
Definitely Giorgio and Burnham in the throne room, and Michelle Yeoh and all her glory, and the tag team, but especially that high kick. I had to watch it several times. I wasn't sure if she kicked Lorca from the front to the back, but it was fabulous.
100%. I believe all of us are on board with that high kicking. I feel confident that those who are responding to this question in the chat are also probably all agreeing that was their favorite, because that high kick next to the ear, come on. I gotta say, one of my favorite fights, though, was one of the first hand-to-hand combat scenes where you see Landry be like, oh, yeah, they're about to mess her up. I'm going to let that happen. I want to see how it's going to take place. And I was low-key there with Landry. I was like, I want to see what's going to happen, too. And it was kind of cool to see Michael Burnham's very chill Vulcan style of kicking butt, where it's not like, I'm fighting hard. It's just like, no, I just do this and this and this. This is the logical moves. Very interesting. And now I'm wondering, do we have any responses from our beautiful audience for their favorite fight? All right. Well, I'm assuming that they are all agreeing with us that the best fight was one of the final ones. Any other reflections on cool action sequences this season?
Special shout out to Klingons on I don't remember what ship it was, but it's like Laurel in hallways. I think it was when Lorca was in jail and he's trying to escape. That was fun. And we got to see lots of floor work.
Yes. Oh no, those were amazing. The Klingon fights on the Ship of the Dead. Yes. Well, that was our Trek Table question number 1.
Thank you. We want to say thanks to everybody who's joining us here live on the Outside In Theater digital channel on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you can find us every Sunday at 4 o'clock Pacific. And you can learn more about Outside In at outsideintheater.org. And that song was Matanzas by the band Quetzal. And that means it is time for our popcorn recap. But that's usually for one episode. And this is our season 1 recap. So it's a little bit different.
Okay, so we're going to play Recap Popcorn. The game is simple. We have 5 minutes to share chunklets of character arcs from season 1.
Yes, we think it's fun because Maya is a Trek femme, sci-fi curious. Claudia comes from generational Trek family, and I love minutia. So we're just wondering, can we do 13 characters in 5 minutes? I know.
All right, Brandon, please set 5 minutes on the timer. Can we get it done?
Incoming transmission.
Excellent. Maya, can you tell us the story of Saru?
Saru, at the beginning, feels like he has a sibling rivalry with Burnham, can predict the oncoming death. Is he a captain? He's interim captain. He has lots of good insights, but he moves from a place of fear a lot of time. But he also had an arc, and then those Gaga boots. Yes, Saru. Claudia, can you tell us the story of Tilly?
Yes, it says Tilly. Oh, she's such a young, fresh, red-headed kid. She just started off in the Star Trekking of it all. She wants to be a captain someday. She's so eager. She's Michael Burnham's roommate. She is so much. She's a lot. But actually, it turns out she's just enough. She's really fun and helps Michael get out of her shell and helps her out whenever she has a problem. And she's a great scientist, too. And in the mirror universe, she has straight hair and she's really scary. The end. Dela, could you tell us about Stamets?
Yes, Stamets is a scientist, and he and his best friend, who's on the USS Glenn, are leading their own experiments to create a spore drive to connect the mycelial threads of the universe. And then the Klingon War breaks out, and then Lorca takes his technology, and Stamets has to be on the USS Discovery, and he tries to be like, I made this ship happen, and Lorca's like, yeah, but I'm in charge. So Stamets gets put in his place, does a lot with the spore drive, and he has a boo, which makes me want to ask, hey, Maya, can you tell us the story about Dr. Hugh Culber?
Yes, paging Dr. Culber, empathetic, asks great questions, incredibly handsome, and gives a delightful side eye. I have to say, this is the reason why I started watching the show, was for Dr. Culber, aka Wilson Cruz. And then he's also in love with, I guess he says, is a reckless maniac, willing to risk his life for glory. But yeah, then Ash killed him, and I'm still upset about it, but I hope his memory lives on. Claudia, can you tell us the story of Michael Burnham?
Michael Burnham. It's a really short story. It's a mild story. Not a lot happens in it. She, as a young child, there's like a gigantic fight, and her parents, I don't know all the details, but her parents are murdered, right? Or her parents are gone. So she gets adopted by a Vulcan, by Sarek. Like Sarek, Spock's dad. And Sarek's like, I'm going to raise you to be Spock's brother, but also I'm going to raise you to like live like a Vulcan and like have no emotions and be super logical, which I don't think is super healthy, frankly. And then she has that, and then she doesn't get into like Klingon or she doesn't get into Vulcan college or whatever. So then she has to go on a ship. So now she's on the ship with Captain Georgiou, and it's like it's a family for the first time. But then she makes a mistake and causes an entire Klingon war. So then she's totally kicked out of Starfleet, and she has to like be in prison almost. But then Lorca like does some shenanigans and gets her on the Discovery because he actually is totally into her mirror universe version. So then Lorca is all like, oh, come with me. And then they like somehow they fight the Klingons, and then they go to the mirror universe, and then fight, and then like bonding with Emperor Georgiou, and then coming back and saving the universe, and then she's back in Starfleet again, and everything's good, and Amanda gives her a hug. Dayla, could you tell us the story of Laurel?
So Laurel starts as a background lady in the House of Takuvma. We think that that's where she's at. But then we discover really she's from the House of Mokai. She comes from Spice. She speaks English. She speaks human, because human equals English at this point. She speaks English, let's say that. And then we discover that she comes out of the dark, and she's able by the end of the season to literally bring the 24 houses of Klingons together. I will also ask, what is the story of Volk? and Ash. Volk is also one of Takuvma's followers. He is an albino Klingon, and he's always been teased about this. When Takuvma dies, he's the torchbearer. He wants to do what he can. Laurel's like, you're going to have to give up everything. Volk's like, I'm down. The next thing we know, there's some human guy named Ash Tyler on a prison ship. He escapes with Lorca. Later on, we find out that Tyler is actually Volk, and they have to come to terms with each other in Tyler's body. And at the end of the season, Tyler goes off as human Tyler with Volk impressions in his memory to go and help Laurel. Claudia, can you tell us the story of Landry?
Yeah, Landry was the head of security on Discovery. We don't get a lot of details about her, but Lorca really likes her a lot. And then she has all this attitude. She lets a fight take place, and then she picks a fight with a tardigrade and loses hard. Dela, could you tell us the story of Lorca?
Totally. So... Yes. So we thank you for that amazing 5 minutes. Usually what we do in Popcorn Recap, if we do not complete the summary, we get one more piece each. And there's each of us gets one more character each.
Okay.
One sentence only. I'm gonna support.
What?
Okay, here we go. Yeah, I know. One sentence only though. It's like the one chunklet, right? As best as you can. Okay, so I'm gonna let you think about it. So here's my story of Lorca. The beginning of the season, we think Lorca is this captain who has learned from the loss of his crew of the USS Buran. We discover he's been lying to us, and he's mirrored Lorca, who's evil and all kinds of things. And he does not believe Emperor Giorgio when she tells him she is destined to kill him. He laughs at her. She literally stabs him in the back and pushes him out the moon door. So yeah, that's Lorca. Maya, do you have one sentence to tell us about Emperor Giorgio? Sentence-ish.
I love how you made up a rule and then you broke it. But yes.
A long sentence.
Emperor Giorgio, brought to the Prime Universe against her will, but makes the best of it and has the best lines. Bow down, Queen Mother.
Yes. Claudia, can you... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Claudia. It's Claudia's turn. She should... your turn to... Can you tell us the story of Sarek?
Real quick, in a sentence? He Spock daddy, he Michael Burnham daddy, he a Vulcan, he ambassador, what?
Yes.
Super important.
Now I'm gonna say this.
Wait, Maya, could tell me the story of Amanda Grayson real quick?
Amanda Grayson is not only Sarek's wife and the mother of Spock, is also the stepmom of Burnham, but she was a teacher back on Earth. I think people need to know this, along with her fashion sense. So
thank you for standing up for Amanda.
Yes, and an Earthling, putting up with Vulcan BS.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to say this. We were also going to summarize the life of the tardigrade, but I feel like that kind of happens a little. Join us in the after chat. We'll drop the link in our chat towards the end of our show if you want to hear me recap the life of the tardigrade. And that, my friends, was our version of Recap Popcorn, 13 characters in 8-ish minutes. Thanks for that.
If you're having a great time, keep the dialogue coming, and then we invite you to like and subscribe us on Instagram at TrekTable and on Twitter, TrekTable1. So join our conversations with hashtag TrekTable, hashtag BIWOC Trek, and hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
Marie has questions.
What does this mean?
Marie has questions.
What's happening? She did what? She's from where? She killed who? Hey everyone, this is Marie Wren. I use she, her pronouns, and welcome to Marie Has Questions. In this section, we want to model that it is okay to ask questions, especially for a Star Trek light person like me, and with a topic as big as Star Trek. I have my friends Dela and Claudia here to answer as many questions as they can in 2 minutes. And even though I can't join the show live today, we thought it would be fun to do Marie Has Questions with all the questions I did not have a chance to ask throughout the season. So here we go. I'm going to read all the questions first. First question. In episode 2 or 3, did I catch Saru putting salt in his tea? And was that even tea or was it something else? And did anyone else find this funny? 2. So early on in our season, I asked about Arium and who they are, and I remember being told that it was a spoiler. So is it possible to know more about Arium now, or is that more of a Discovery Season 2 spoiler? 3, is the tardigrade bigger on the inside? And then 4, in the finale, they terraform a planet in like what seems like 5 minutes, like super fast. And I think I missed the science-y exposition part to explain this. And it just feels way too fast. So can someone help me better understand this idea of how they were able to terraform the planet so quickly? Okay, those are all my questions from the season that have been left over, and you have 2 minutes to answer as many questions as you can. Now, go.
Incoming transmission.
All right, y'all. I did not notice Saru putting weird stuff in his tea, but I feel like that's because I don't clock weird future food things. Like, I assume if you're an alien, you're eating weird stuff.
Ditto. I will say my answer to the Arium question is we see a little bit more about Arium, but yeah, season two.
I feel like that's the deal with most of the bridge crew. Like, we didn't really get a lot of bridge crew stories, so I'm excited that we get to find out more about them. The tardigrade is not a TARDIS. The tardigrade is not a TARDIS. The tardigrade, I'm actually disappointed, Dela, that our audience didn't get to hear your fulsome autobiography of the tardigrade, because I thought the tardigrade had a different life story. And when you said that, I was like, oh, that's how the tardigrade came to be? But the tardigrade is not bigger on the inside, at least not that I know. I just said that with so much confidence. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I just want to say Brandon's putting in the chat TARDIS grade. So there's that crossover for you. All right, I'm going to answer the last question. There's a science-y part of the explanation where they send a bunch of things down onto the planet that then plant the roots and the seeds. And then there's a science-y reason why they're able to electrify it and then spur the spores to grow. So
yeah, basically, it's space magic is what it was. They used the space magic machine to make space magic vibes go into the planet, so space magic, other vibe magic could happen.
Yes, and there's even a scene at the end where I was doing some recap prep. I saw Stamets holding what looked like a jar. Well, it's the jar that he says his last part of the spores that he sends to replicate in to actually start this whole new moon planet terraformed in its likeness. So, yeah, I think. Oh, and then the tardigrade lost its water weight. All right. Thank you, Marie. That was Marie Has Questions. I hope you could give Marie a digital round of applause. That was so fun. We didn't know what those questions were, so that was a complete surprise to us. If you have enjoyed Marie having questions and you want to ask Marie a question or get first reveals for our weekly Trek Table questions, then we want to invite you to go ahead and join our mailing list at the Trek Table website. Go ahead and visit us at trektablepodcast.com. Sign up for our mailing list and you'll get all the cool info first.
So now we are here for Discovery Design to dish on all the design elements that gave us so much drama this season. There's so many things we could talk about. I'm going to encourage us to not think about amazing costume elements because we could list so many, and just think about more of the world building elements. Like, hey y'all, what'd you think about this spore drive? That's brand new, isn't it?
Yes.
Opinions on the spore drive?
I will say that the visual that's on the screen right now is actually Stamets' plug-in to the spore drive, and I want to say that was designed by his husband. right? Daddy Colbert is the one who designed that interface for him. So this image to me, I was like, oh, this is like boo science happening all at the same time. So I kind of like that. And I will say that, yeah, the tardigrade, thank you, Claudia, for holding up the story that is waiting to be told about this tardigrade. We'll hear about them a little bit later, but part of what I really appreciate about the Spore Drive is the way we were able to understand how much of the crew has to actually make the Spore Drive run. Like, it's not just Tilly and Stamets, but to Marie's question about Arium is the bridge-based crew member who has to push buttons in order for the Spore Drive to also activate.
I gotta say,
Yeah.
I love the. Ooh, go ahead, Maya.
Oh,
Please.
there's like a combination of like physics and biology with the understanding of the Spore Drive. There's mushrooms, it's like I think I heard it described as like the veins and muscles of the galaxy and being, so it was fun to have that as a kind of a device, because I only knew about warp drive before this, so.
Mushrooms are cool. Mushrooms, like the mycelial network, mushrooms in general in the world, they're fascinating organic things. And low key, I feel like some of these folks went to grad school and were studying Deleuze, because like I can't help but like be thinking about rhizomatic networks and those ways of connecting and building and organizing, and how that's like a core conceit. It's amazing. I should keep us going. What about the Klingon ship of the dead? That was new and different too.
Yeah, I this is actually the visual that we're showing is something that they released at I think Comic-Con in 2017 prior to the show coming on air, and just the baroqueness or the gothic hallness of the inside of the ship. I know early in our season last year, one of our former guest hosts, Arthur, was asking the question about how do they get flames in this thing. So I'm really impressed with the amount of environment that the Klingon technology is able to create. And the grandeur of it all, and the beautiful homageness with all the sarcophagi around on the outside of which is the whole reason why Burnham's like, ooh, pretty thing, what is it? It's so amazing. So she has one of my favorite descriptors at the top of season.
So many
It
rooms.
seemed like it had a lot of, so many rooms and so much stone.
Yeah, how would that fly in space? I don't know. I'm not the physics person, but it seems real heavy. But yeah, right. The gravity is different in space. Or we don't even have gravity. So yeah, that works in their favor.
Maya, you were commenting on the connections of biology and how that's kind of a beautiful thing. I felt like that was a note also with the planet Pavo, which was so pretty. Do we have any reflections on that sentient planet?
Oh my God, it was so beautiful. I remember just the colors, the planet feels alive, and Saru's like super overstimulated because he can sense all this stuff. I remember us feeling like, the colors were taking us to a rave of sorts. It was super beautiful. I understood why Saru wanted to stay there, because he's in a constant state of fear, and it was the first time he could, relax and kind of take a vacation from all that fear.
For real.
Plus, we got a yurt.
The Pavo kiss in the yurt. We don't often have a lot of yurts in Star Trek, and I'm glad we had a space yurt. It's good to have a space outer space yurt. I gotta say, I wish that the Pavans could run the universe. I feel like they got some, they have some things together, and I would love to live on their planet. Can we talk about the planet Kronos? And maybe we can talk about, like, they had a bunch of adventures on that planet, but maybe we can talk about Tilly accidentally getting high on volcanic fumes. But yeah, Kronos, what's up with Kronos?
I will say, Tilly. I don't know if somebody else wants to talk about getting high on the fumes with Clint Howard there in the visual that's on screen. But I will say what I loved about Kronos is just seeing all the different non-Starfleet environment where we get to see civilization in a way, and just what does it mean to have Orion run space on a Klingon home world. So that's what struck out to me. We did have a pretty deep conversation in that episode 16 actually of Trek Table, where we talk about the Orientalism that kind of appears on the planet. And so just I really appreciate several of our conversations from last season and just kind of helping us to kind of break it up and open our brains about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the informal economy of the Orions, I mean, from street vendors to sex workers. So it's definitely a place for a lot to happen, and people have threesomes, and yes, are a little bit pressured into taking a whiff off of volcanic vapors.
Oh,
That was rough.
that was rough. I feel like it was a waste of casting from Clint Howard though, because like he's fabulous, but in my mind, in this Star Trek spin-off show they're going to do, there's a very specific character that I've always had. I've been headcanon casting that actor in this role if there was ever going to be a reboot. So maybe they'll just cast him again. That would be fun. We're running out of time. Let me ask one last question about time, because we had some time loop technology that I don't think I've seen in any other Star Trek. Do we have opinions about Harry Mudd and his looping around?
I mean, I love that he came out of the mouth of a space whale.
Yeah, absolutely. And his funny looking helmet at the beginning, like, I don't know if he stole that from a I don't know, Ryan. Who was I thinking? The ones that are blue with the antennas. It kind of, yeah, it gave me Andorian vibes. And his wrist cuff was so clunky, but that's what helped him loop back and forth, or mostly back in time. And yeah, and how did he remember all the things that he learned in like the 50 jumps he did without taking any notes? That part I was impressed of, but yeah, he must have been exhausted going back in time so much. But it was like a moment in the season that kind of doesn't make sense, but it was like it's so needed to be there because we got to learn so much about Tyler and Burnham get to like figure out how to fall in love, and just go for it because they just looping over and over and over until they get it. So yeah, we get to see the crew like partying and some of them who actually know how to relax and get out of uniform. But yeah, I know nothing about that technology, but I loved the blue of the like marbles that he used, those dangerous marbles he stole from Lorca that like make you explode if you swallow them or something.
This entire season just used color so well. So I'm going to wrap up this Discovery talk because this was fun. This was a lot of fun, just reflecting on the Discovery design elements that were different and new from previous iterations of Star Trek. So I loved doing that. So that's our time, and I can't wait to share more insights next week in Discovery Designs as we launch season 2.
Yes. And so we want to say, if you're having a good time with us, we would love you to join our conversations on Facebook and our Trek Table Podcast Facebook group. You can catch the link in your screen or in your chats. And we're excited.
And as we are heading into the musical break, we would like to share Trek Table question number 2. Of all of this amazing technology that you saw this season, what did you covet most? Like, what did you like? What did you like the most? Why? If you could travel into the past or the future and steal that technology, what would you take? We want to know. Hello, everyone. So, of all of the technology that we saw this season, what did you covet the most? What did you like the most? And I recognize this is another question where we might want to get listy. I'm going to resist the urge to list all my things. But, Dayla, if you have more than one, it's completely welcome. Say with you, Maya. So, Dayla, what tech would you want? What did you covet?
I covet the digital Katra connector on Burnham to Sarek. I think it looked amazing. I'm just curious about the mind melding and all the things. That's what I would answer. So I'll stick with one.
Mm. I see someone from the audience saying a food replicator. I am loving that. Also, for our canon heads in the audience, could you talk to us a little bit about, are they supposed to even have replicators at this time? They definitely have replicators on the Discovery, but I had questions about that. Hey Maya, how about you? What tech would you want the most?
Um, I I really do want to fly or move across the mycelial network. So I'd love to get into that spore drive, even though the after effects, the come down, the hangover seems pretty harsh.
I don't know. Stamets seemed to be real happy walking those hallways. He just seemed real light. Dr. Culber was like, he's just this way for right now. Oh, I see Jessica in the audience says, all the things you're talking about, I love because it felt like this Trek show was the most connected to where we are now in a thoughtful and imaginative way. Yeah, yeah. Um, I will say that I often covet the things that seem like things that would make my basic day-to-day life easier and faster and better. Like it would be wonderful to like be like, "Hey machine, what should I eat?" And the machine would say, "You should eat this delicious thing cuz I checked your vitals and you should have these nutrients." I love that. But honestly, I want Mud's time looper. That seems real convenient.
Can I just add to, I just mentioned this today to a friend, or the other day, he was annoyed that his friend always wants to like video chat him, phone, face whatever time with him. But I was like, hello, we're in the future. That was a thing, like being able to video call. When I was a kid, we didn't have that. The phone's still connected to the wall.
It's really true. Oh, well, are there any other Trek tech things that we want to give some love to?
I guess what I want to say is I do love that as part of her inheritance from Captain Giorgio, Burnham received and then ultimately regifted to Saru an old telescope. And somehow I caught in the rewatch in the scene with the three of them, I was like, oh, this is their naive scene. This is we're not at war with the Klingons yet, and we're having sibling fight, and now we're all looking through mom's telescope to try to figure out what it is. And even Saru actually gets a look through it. So I think what I also appreciate is the ways that this show has been also able to make me value not just the tech in the original series that I'm looking out for, like the flip phones or the flip communicator, but I'm also was deeply inspired by seeing what they call old school tech, but what we know to be something that could help give us our own window into the stars. So I'll leave that there.
I love that. I feel like the other piece of tech I would covet would be any of the wearable tech because it was fabulous. And that reminds me, I think that is the end of Trek Table question number 2 because now is the time in our ritual where we invite everyone to move around in their seats and screens because it's time for a Trek Table dance break with Space Runway!
Some of the eye-catching looks from function of fashion in the 23rd century. Space runway. Yes. Welcome to Space Runway. And this week we are doing highlights from the entire season 1. We have 9 looks today, starting with the House of Klingon. Look number 9. From this bridge called my Batleth to Valk as a young artist, to the pearl drops of House de Gore, Klingons were serving in-your-face opulent warrior fashion this season, from the crests on the sides of their ships all the way to the tips of their armor. And let's not forget that House de Kuvma served flames and fire all season. Or really, is it L'Rell's House of Mokai? 'Cause that Tyler surprise? Look number 8. Away missions.
The vest. the coats, the bags. Our favorite Discovery crew members and even our Mirror Universe Emperor showed us how to pack for the trip, look the part, whether it be as a diplomatic envoy or in a laser tag practice, or maybe you're blending in as a lowlife. They what is it? They worked it all to the all the way. Let me start that again because it's such an important sentence. They worked it all the way to the transporter room. Functional lights and attachments to their vests literally brought in the light.
Look number 7, Vulcan fashion.
Lots of high Vulcan collars and severe fashion. Daddy Sarek was always rocking the textured fabrics and austere collars. Our favorite look here is sullen teenager doesn't win the prize. As we watch Burnham struggle to not show all of her disappointment for not getting into the Vulcan Science Expeditionary Squad, despite graduating the top of her class, and rocking the fierce bob, those signature Vulcan bangs all amongst the collar, the shoulder pads, and that red outer coat to her white sleeves. Just,
Yes, and look number 6, background crew.
We see you, melanated augment lady. We see you, Awosa-kun. We see you, mole butt face crew member. And the cyborg crew members with the head shaped like the Price is Right wheel. We see you background lesbians in the Time Warp episode, dancing the 30 minutes over and over and over while one of you has unzipped your crew member's jacket to signify that you're off duty and on board with all that partying. We see you. We may not know all of your names, but we see you and thank you for your service.
Absolutely, background lesbians. Look number 5, tech fashion.
Yes, from the rollerball mouse that Tyler had to use in the shuttlecraft to Burnham's tech backpack for Pavel, as well as the Mirror Universe and Landry pulling out the red comms, aka the red flip phone. Season 1 of Discovery is serving us all kinds of tech fashion and fashion that is tech. Don't believe me? Ask Her Imperial Highness, the Mother of the Fatherland, Emperor Philippa Georgios Centarius Eponius, about that bracelet that she has that closes shields in the Grand Hall and opens mycelial moon doors, all while being golden and blingy brightly on her wrist.
Yes, and look number 3, hair and headpieces. Discovery Hair did it all this season, from low ponies, coiffed curls, high and tight cuts, straight styles, side-swept bangs, updos, and of course, the bald heads you just want to rub, but you won't because that would be awkward to do to an admiral or a Klingon. And of course, we can't forget facial augmentations, hair adornments, and big reveal emperor crowns. Look number 2, mirror moments. Excess and the dark side of humanity, where we imagine what life would be like in opposite timelines. Everything the Federation would never allow itself to wear, or do for that matter, in the prime timeline because of all those ethics or something. But or is it all our shadow beast is always lurking in the mirror? Reds, blacks, gold-plated everything, accessorized to the teeth with laser-cut breastplates and extra belts and medals because they love to show off how badass they are, as well as amped-up eyeshadows, guyliner, and lips, low-slung swords, sweating in an agonizer, and don't forget, a Vulcan with a beard for good measure. Look number 1, runway songs. From the first moment we saw Michael Burnham in her spacesuit, we knew she was
living her life like it's golden, living her life like it's golden.
Then we flash back to adolescent Burnham looking like Salt and Pepper and DJ Spinderella on planet Vulcan with a
shoop shoopy doop Vulcan Bob shoopy doopy doopy.
And then the missions and the poor tardigrade and its mammograms made it clear
Tardigrade, it had to be free, free, free.
And then one last jump and Lorca all saying to Stamets,
I'm starting. Go ahead, Claudia. You
I'm
take it.
starting with the man in the mirror universe.
And it doesn't take long for Ash Tyler to be singing.
Transporter DJ saved my life.
And then Dr. Pollard tells us that
Ash Tyler got a human face with a Klingon booty.
and the rest of the crew is all like, hold up.
We got a meeting in the Spore Lab. We'll be back real soon.
And then we finally make it back to our universe timeline with the Klingon War and Kronos. And then
You light up my tattoo. And then again, Transporter DJ saved my life. And then when it all ends,
back to life, back to reality. All right. Yes, we really did sing songs about space fashion last season. And that, my friends, is Space Runway for this week. Fashion, form, and function in the future.
amazing. Welcome back. Welcome. We are at the thematics section of the Trek table where we get a chance to kind of braid it all together, explore some of the themes we've been kind of loosely talking about in this recap remix, giving us a chance to jump into themes, insights, and reflections for this season. All right, topic number one, today, June 20th, when we are filming with our live digital audience here in the Outside In YouTube channel. Today is Father's Day, so we just want to share greetings and share love to all the fathers, uncles, abuelos, lolos, the zaddies, the father figures in your life, the space daddy in your life, whoever that might be. Whether you are an ancestor form or here with us in body, we just want to hold space for folks. For that, and for folks who might have challenging or no relationship with their father. So all those things are true today. We hold that in our containers. And it just kind of reminds me, we were talking about this earlier, Claudia, as you were doing the recap on Burnham, that we discover why she is connected to Sarek. We discover why she is part of the Sarek, Amanda, Spock family. We discover why she's connected to Giorgio or Tilly or Saru. So this show really does open up this idea of found family, of connection, of new kind of ways to conceptualize how we express our love, I think, in ways that I find really resonant. And I wanted to just ask as an opening question for us in thematics, do you have a favorite relationship this season that you discovered? Whether it be, siblings, whether it be parent and child, whether it be, booze. There was some booze in this season. Claudia, I wonder if you want to go first.
I really believe that Sarek Michael Burnham through line, it was deeply satisfying to me. It explored complex relationships with parental figures where there's harm, there's trauma, there's denial, there's silence, there's a moment of parenting the parent. And I love that that in the end, he acknowledges her as his daughter. And that's like a big, that feels like that's part of her full season arc. There's some healing that's being done in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Maya, what about you? The relationship that resonates the most for you this season?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, though, it isn't any easier just because they're in space. I mean, all of these relationships sort of shape how we move in the world of our childhood to now. But I really appreciate the sort of sibling friend relationships, Saru and Michael Burnham, and Tilly and Michael Burnham, and then kind of with, I mean, I guess it's a mentee mentor kind of thing, or maybe uncle with Stamets, Tilly and Stamets. But yeah, I mean, just that the playfulness, the soft parts that they push each other's buttons. I appreciate that, and also standing up for each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, I would ditto what you're both sharing, and I would say, now that you shared that, I was like, that also gives me space to be like, I was so happy to see Stamets and Colbert together. Maya, I know that Colbert is the reason you watch the show, but it felt really great to see queer people being queer in space and not having it to be a metaphor or have to pretend, like, read through it. Like, it was just there. I love that they got to do the first teeth brushing scene in Star Trek franchise. Like, they had matching maroon jammies, like all of that. So I'm there for that. And I would also say I really appreciated watching Burnham and both Captain Giorgio and Emperor Giorgio and that relationship and context. And yeah, in the rewatch, just really seeing who Burnham was when she met Captain Giorgio, and just watching this arc this season, and her own struggle to be accountable, to try to be restorative to this person who she loves, who, like, getting Giorgio's comm badge, getting her ID badge back at the end of the season, just, ooh, I could feel the tears already. Just, like, so awesome. And then watching Emperor Giorgio be like, I'm not her. We have our own thing. So, which it could be a whole other Space Runway song. So, Emperor Gigi. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop. All right, so we've talked a little bit about relationships that matter to us. I wanna also, in our prep meetings, Maya, we were talking about kind of things that were standing out to us as we began to prep for today, and you mentioned just noticing all the tables in this season, and I wonder, do you have a favorite table that you witnessed? Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, there was the admiral tables of all of them sitting around, looking at, space maps and digital maps. But also wasn't there the table with all the food on the Klingon ship? When one Klingon house is trying to steal another loyalty. And then what was the one that's my favorite is actually in the mirror universe with are they the rebels? Where they're kind of hidden on that planet, and we see like all the other mirror universe, like the Tellurides and the Andorians, I think, and the Klingons, who are like, are working together in a way that they wouldn't have in the Prime universe, and because that gives us, Vogue fighting Ash Tyler, and it also gives us Sarek with a beard. And yeah, we have to it's a one way to sit around and like and see multiple people and multiple viewpoints. Got to sit down together sometimes.
Before I ask you, Claudia, if you have a favorite table, we could also move on. I just want to acknowledge again, yeah, Rebel Vogue, super hot. I don't know, different to me than Prime Universe Vogue. I was like, ooh, as you said, the Rebel table. I was like, yeah, dude, get it. I'm all about somebody who's about trying to help people come, not even people, to help beings come together to try to make their universe and their lives better. Claudia, do you want to jump in on tables, or should we go to another topic?
I agree on the table. I fully agree. That was my favorite table too.
Amazing. Great. So then bridging on that, connecting to that, Claudia, when we were having our prep, I wanted to give Maya a question. We were talking about, and we've been talking all season about like colonialism and the colonialist ethics, and just even the reason I think I fell in love with Discovery was just from that first like 15 minutes of, I actually was like, yeah, I think I fell in love with the show within the first 15 minutes, but for sure in that first opening sequence where all we're hearing is Klingon, and then it ends with this whole question about, do you trust that Starfleet really does come in peace? And it just resonated again really deeply about the way in which colonialism and imperialism have impacted a lot of communities in our lives, and so in my own family's history, right? And so you were saying something really amazing about how you feel about Discovery and what it fulfills for you. And I just wanted to give space for that. Like, you want to share that with our audience today?
Sure. I mean, low key, I was sharing with you some of my conflicted feelings about this project and doing it because I love my Star Trek so much. I really do. But I also think it's a complicated love and pleasure. So I love my Doctor Who. I love my Star Trek. I love all of my colonialist daddies. They're all colonialist daddies. I love the story. And these are stories of recuperation. Like, there's a reason why lots and lots of money is spent to make these capitalist cultural productions. They're meant to do something to the world and to us and to encourage us to act and think in specific ways in the world. And so I ask myself, what is Star Trek trying to get me to do? It's trying to get me to not only be okay with the American exercise, but to believe that it's fundamentally not a flawed exercise and will result in the kindest, most thoughtful, Picard-like colonialist daddy. I love this show, and I will watch. I'm one of these Star Trek nerds. I'm gonna watch any. Yesterday, someone was like, "What's the new Star Trek?" And I was like, "I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna be watching it because I love my Star Trek so much." Even when I recognize it's doing some recuperative exercises to maybe make me feel better about colonialism stories or capitalism stories or different ways society works, I still gotta love it. I gotta love my Star Trek.
So profound. I would love to know if anyone's done work around organizing practices and thinking about Star Trek and intersections. That's where you made me go like, oh, that sounds like a really dope idea for us to think about. How do we use Star Trek towards organizing towards a real equity space and not just some kind of recuperative capitalism kind of little shade, you know? So, Maya, thoughts on colonialism, capitalism, recuperative television?
Yeah, I didn't actually think about. I mean, they're using the Federation, the ships, the planets as, as a setting to develop the storylines. I didn't really think about how they're using like the Navy and ship, language to describe the ships, and that it was, they're kind of like a military, but this particular ship is a science vessel. So I mean, but just the organization style, I wonder what the influences are, because I thought about that when trying to like replicate it in doing my own kind of fantasy of diaspora in space. I didn't want to reproduce those hierarchies, but yet I was thinking about how do you organize, and especially in crisis situations, how do you work together? You sort of need a certain amount of hierarchy, right? Yeah, I mean, because I've also worked in collectives that had no hierarchies. Everybody has a say, and that's super awesome in theory, but doesn't always work, right? Somebody always ends up picking up the slack. So it's nice to know what your role is and what your duty is. So yeah, I mean, that was something I was thinking a lot about, because I my dad's from Central America, and for me, the reason why he's in the U.S. is because of military interventions and things like that. So that's not my fantasy life of being in that. But again, it is the science fiction of it. It is the fantasy of it. It is, the idealism of it, of how can we be better as human beings? How can we organize ourselves in the future? What can we do with this technology so we don't have to organize ourselves around capitalism and only a few having the resources or having a replicator? What happens when you can replicate everything and you don't need to stand in line to get sneakers, so yeah, that's a couple thoughts that are coming through.
Oh, amazing. And friends in the chat, we invite you to share your thoughts about season 1 and what you've enjoyed. We'd love to hear more. And thematics for us would not be complete if we did not jump into a spoiler zone. So if you're watching the show synchronously and you don't want to hear us talk about season 2, This is an opportunity for you to be cared for. We're actually caring for you. So we're going to spend 3 minutes in the spoiler zone. If you're visually watching us, you'll see a visual red alert up in your left corner. And when we're done, it'll turn green. If you are listening to our audio podcast on the re-listen, you're going to give us 3 minutes from when I call it to Brandon. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Brandon, let's go to the spoiler zone.
Incoming transmission.
Go. Anyone want to go first? I can go first. I'm super excited for season 2 to start because I'm so excited for Tig Notaro to show up as Jet Reno. I love what she adds to Queer Fam Bam. And I just have to say, like, I'm so excited about learning more about Burnham's blended family and just how she, you know, for people to be able to understand how she fits into the canon and how they do that and undo that in all these amazing ways. So season 2, I will say, is my favorite. I know season 3 is dope too, but I just really heart season 2. And the last thing I want to say is Burnham appears in episode 1 of every single season, somehow only in her spacesuit, always in space, at least at one point. So when season 4 starts, I want to see if she's going to be in a spacesuit out in actual space. Those are my spoilers on thoughts. Maya, Claudia, who wants to go next?
I mean, I was so excited for season 2 that that I started watching it right after we finished season 1. I tried, you know, I feel like Marie's going to be the only one who's like, you know, trying to wait each week, but I just went down a wonderful, beautiful rabbit hole. I mean, that Spock comes, I mean, that's sort of a nod to, I guess, you know, people who love that character. His, you know, his backstory is super fun. But I actually don't get to the part where they find him. And the new captain, you know, he's a little bit more tender. He's very masculine. He's funny, but he also seems to finally like you know, defer to even Burnham sometimes. So that part's interesting. And yeah, and then just, I mean, I can't wait for the development of some of the characters too. That we don't get to see in season 1 is badass.
Claudia.
Yeah, I'm hungry to start talking about the show and referencing all the other pieces of the show. I was very, very excited to see Pike. That's who I was excited about. I was nervous about Spock. In season 2, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. When it comes to season 1, I came into it thinking that I was going to be enjoying something that was only of itself. And then I realized that it was trying to put a bunch of stuff in to get nostalgia bait, some of our Star Trek canon heads to get in there. Also, like, so I am excited for season 2. I like new Star Trek ideas, and I'm excited about the new Star Trek ideas in season 2. And I'm also excited to start reflecting on how Star Trek Discovery is actually incredibly similar to Star Trek the original series. And all of the complaints people have about soap opera-ness and drama, I'm like, I went back and rewatched the original series, y'all. It's the same.
Right, there's a lot of men crying in those too.
Transfer of data is complete.
Amazing. And if you're so I'm gonna wave my hands if you're watching us and you want to come back from being muted. Welcome back to our listeners who are keeping Spoiler Zone away from their ears or their eyes. Welcome back to our podcast listeners as well. We just want to say thank you to everybody. Those are our thoughts on thematics for Star Trek Discovery Season 1. And if you would like to help us hold Trek space for women of color and our allies, then we invite you to go ahead and support us on patreon.com/TrekTable.
And as we head into our final Trek Table question, we would like you to be thinking about how would you survive in a mirror universe that had values that were opposite to your own? So, Star Trek fans, how would you survive in a mirror universe with values that were opposite to your own? Now, we had a lot of mirror universe conversations. It's one of my favorite conversations to have. What I like about this is that it's a little more open. Like, we're framing this as this isn't necessarily the Terran mirror universe. This question is, how would you deal with a universe that really fundamentally challenged how you live in the world? Because that's what happens to Michael Burnham. Maya, let me start with you.
This is such a great question. Because, I always like to think that, like, if I actually had it harder and less choices, I would be so much more disciplined. So that's one thought. But at the same time, whatever the informal economy is, I would be a part of that probably. I'm no hero, I don't think, in my opposite mirror universe.
Although I don't think that being part of like if you're referencing informal economies to mean like the Orions doing criminal acts, I feel like that's a dominant culture paradigm. Like something being, I just feel like if you're in a different universe, and you have to steal to survive, and stealing is against the rules, then you're breaking the rules of that universe. But what if the universe is you're stealing and everybody's a thief, and it's actually everybody steals? Well, then you're in values and you're in line. I feel like whatever universe I got put in, I know myself, and I tend to be rather firm in my values. So if I was in a universe that had the opposite values to me, I'd be like, oh, I can fix this universe. Let me start a committee.
Yes. I have to say, this reminds me of like what it felt like to go away to a historically white private liberal arts college and feel like I was in an opposite universe from the world I was from. And just what it meant to survive there and how it shaped who I was. And I know Chorizo agrees, like it's very profound to feel like I will just say I had this one moment at a college party where I was like, oh, no, none of the people here actually desire my body type. So it's not necessarily that I'm unattractive. I just am not attractive in this cultural context. And once I figured that out, it really alleviated a lot of my like feeling all the feels about being in this parallel or this mirror universe of a life and being like, but where I grew up, people like me are hot. Like, what's going on? So
yes.
And you know, I don't know. Go ahead.
No, say it. Tell it. Was there more?
Well, I'm thinking this is. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm shy. I'm like, come to after chat.
I know. I got super excited because I was just thinking this reminds me of what it is like to try and survive in a corporate atmosphere as well, where you go in and it's like mirror universe values, where suddenly doing a kind service to someone actually might be seen as negative inside the corporate context. So yeah, ooh, you always give me the best ideas, y'all. I love it. And that is all for our Trek table question number 3. And join us tonight in the after chat where we'll be discussing Trek table question number 4 of all the locations that we saw in season 1, which was the most intriguing and why. And we might also talk about what was our favorite sexy scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and can we talk about if we'd flirt with our mirror selves again?
Yes. So join us in the after chat. It's going to get spicy, y'all.
Awesome. Welcome back. We strive here at the Trek table to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color who are content creators, community builders, and world shapers. So we do love to amplify what other folks are doing. Claudia, can I have you share our first signal boost for the day?
Congrats to our friends at Artist at Play who are celebrating a new season with a new podcast episode. The season 2 opener, the Artist at Play producing team rehashes and recreates some of their favorite original pieces written and performed for Artist at Play at Play. Join AAP as they revisit this annual kickoff event, a tradition with the group since 2015. Go to their website, which we will share in the chat.
Amazing. Our second signal boost of this episode, we want to encourage folks. Folks all over the country are still commemorating Juneteenth, and we want to invite you to watch Juneteenth 2021 Untold Stories, virtual presentation from the Arts Center in Orange, Virginia. Presentations by Dr. Dina Jennings and Michael Carter Jr. focus on unearthing family legacies and the importance of preserving connections with the past. We're going to drop that link in the chat or in our episode notes. You can learn more there. Maya, can you share our last update?
Yes, All My Relations is a team of folks who care about representations and how Native peoples are represented in the mainstream media. Their recent podcast episode is called All My Loving Relations, and this conversation covers how we all have different forms of ceremony to find love within ourselves, and there are so many ways to love. In this All My Relations episode, the host asks, how do we heal from historical trauma to love again? For more information, visit their website, www.allmyrelationspodcast.com/podcast.
Yes, and if you have a woman of color creator that you want us to help amplify, let us know. Send us a DM at TrekTable on Instagram or at TrekTable1 on Twitter. You can drop it in the chat. We can follow up with you. And this concludes our signal boost for this Trek Table episode 17. Thanks so much for joining us as we wind down this episode 17 of the Trek Table. As is the case every week, we ask each person at the table to go around and share final thoughts. I'm going to ask Marie Wren to come back and share her final thought with us about Star Trek Discovery Season 1. Marie?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for including me in final thoughts for Season 1. And my final thoughts are actually connected a lot to Sarek, because Sarek is a character I didn't really know that much about going into Discovery, and because I haven't watched a ton of Star Trek. So this is, this is an interesting journey for me to watch, especially in only seeing like the context of his relationship with Michael Burnham and the connection that they have. And so I keep thinking about how he is reflecting on the decisions that he's made around Michael and those that have haunted him. And so, like, how is he reconciling with what he perceives as mistakes, even though like the outcomes of where we are right now, based on those choices that Sarek has made, has brought us to where we are. So yeah, I just find him a really fascinating character, and I would just love to have a conversation with Sarek about colonialism. I'm really curious as to what that would be like.
Amazing. It's like she was here. It's so amazing.
So cool.
Thank you so much, Marie Wren.
She beamed in just for us.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. Super excited. All right. So thank you, Marie Wren. We're looking forward to when you get to be live with us again. All right. Maya, can I go to you next? Do you have your final thoughts for Season 1 of Star Trek Disco?
Yeah, I'm still reeling from those questions and commentary about, colonialism and colonial studies and, opposite value, being in a place with opposite values. You all have challenged me to think about, I do sort of see myself as a rebel, and I wonder whether whether I would rebel against any timeline or any style, or would I ever be a part of the main timeline. But also, I want to just say that because it is Father's Day, I also want to know what all the daddies and all the fathers and father figures, what kind of dad jokes they have in space. So I do want to share one dad joke. It has nothing to do with space, but it makes me feel closer to my grown worthy dad. A polar bear walks into a pub and asks for a gin and tonic, and the bartender says, "Okay, but why the big pause?" And the polar bear says, "Oh, I was born with these." Thank you. Thank you. And also, just, I could say more about this season. It was a little dark, but I was glad I knew a little bit about it, that we get to do it in this watch. And we were watching it during a global pandemic, and it's been my sort of pandemic anchor. So I'm just grateful to all the Star Trek fans that have kept, Star Trek going, and that the new versions. I'm grateful to those of you that have brought me into the fandom, lovingly, and allowed me to have a little bit of tenderness, a little bit of imagination space, and to imagine, what would I do in alternative timelines? So, and it's not only important to band together during times of crisis, but also to imagine how we might do it better. So that's what I'm pulling from season 1.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maya. Claudia, your final thoughts on Star Trek Disco season 1?
Star Trek is my comfort food. It is my comfort blanket. It is my safe place. It is a space for in my youth, it was a space where I could imagine Black people being free, being in power, being in charge. I could imagine that I could be Uhura in the future. I could imagine that I could be Geordie LaForge in the future, that I could be in charge of the entire engineering deck, even if I was disabled, even if I was Black. So I've been watching Star Trek whenever I have a problem, whenever I'm depressed. I watch my Star Trek. It makes me feel good. So I'm really moved by Maya's final observations about how Star Trek can help us to imagine ways that are better, ways of organizing out of the chaos, out of the conflict. I really love that opportunity. And I'll name that this project that you invited me to participate in has been a very different Star Trek experience for me. I've always been in spaces where I had to keep most of my Star Trek opinions to myself because they were so spicy and also so esoteric and intellectual, and I could only talk like that with my family. So you're my new Star Trek family. Yay!
Love it. Thank you. That makes me so happy. To hear you both is just amazing. Thank you. I will share my final thoughts for the season. I want to say a couple things. I just want to say thank you to women of color who have been in the Star Trek fandom, who've been holding it down. Some of the women at Warp, including Kennedy Allen and Elisa Pearl. And thank you to Ebony Astor from Feminist Frequency Radio. I just was super inspired when I first found Star Trek Discovery, and I was hungry to see what would it be like if we could have a space to talk with other women of color about Star Trek fandom. So I'm just super grateful that we're here. And I will say that part of the reason why I think I fell in love with Discovery wasn't just those first few lines, but like you said, Maya, it reminded me of a thing I was seeking. And I realized that, like you said, Claudia, Star Trek is not just my comfort food, but it actually helped me realize in watching Disco, I was like, right, I lost a sense of discipline in my growing older self that my younger self, who was a next generation viewer, held so tightly. And so just thinking about as I have aged, the journey and the trials and the growth amongst the struggle, and just to be able to feel present with Michael Burnham and just be so grateful to watch her journey and all those things. Oh, lots of feels. So I'm just so grateful that we get to be in this space. And I look forward to us getting to talk about season 2 of Discovery in the coming weeks. So those are our final thoughts on Star Trek Discovery Season 1, and we hope that you'll join us by watching Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 1, Brother, because that's what we're going to talk about next Sunday.
Next week, as we start with Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 1. You're a voice in my ear. Thank you all for joining us at the Trek Table. Enjoy our highlights. Join us next week as we start with Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 1. Get first look at the Trek Table questions, inside scoops, and more when you sign up for our awesome mailing list at www.trektablepodcast.com.
And find Trek Table Podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, and we just want to say thank you so much to our partners here at Outside In Theater on this digital channel. We're so glad to be here. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel. You're going to want to come back and find us every Sunday at 4. And you can find it also by doing youtube.com/outsideintheater.
Also, thank you. We're going to invite you all to like and subscribe to us on the Instagram, on the Facebook, at Trek Table, on the Twitter, at Trek Table 1. Join our conversations there. Comment using the hashtags, hashtag Trek Table, hashtag BIWOC Trek, and hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
Yes, and we just want to say thank you so much for all the gratitude to Claudia and Maya who have been here live on the show with us, and special shouts out to Marie Wren for transporting in to share that video with us. We want to say thank you for sharing all of your insights, thoughts, and experiences with us today. When we started to gather earlier this afternoon, we were holding Trek space for the struggle, the growth, and the hope of Michael Burnham. We were holding Trek space for folks nervous but excited for the future, and for grace, gentleness, and the certainty of uncertainty. We're holding Trek space for Picard Season 2's new trailer that made somebody really emotional. We're holding Trek space for air conditioning, and Lord have mercy. Thank you, God, aircon. Also holding Trek space, and because fans are excited that we're back, and we're going to hold that Trek space for you being excited for the beginnings that are built on endings. We also want to re-engage with life in a strange new world filled with people you can actually touch. And one person is holding space for all the joy. As we close, we want to say thank you so much to the Trek Table production team, executive producers Allison Dela Cruz and Luzwa Mindajariwala, production coordinator Brandon Chang, artist coordinator Terry Hashimoto, social media manager Isil Borlasa, stage manager Ariana Michelle.
Deep gratitude and thanks to Outside In Theater, with extra thanks to Jessica, Paul, Matt, Tamlin, Danny, Arlo, and Alex. Thanks also to Geekish Network, our exclusive partner on Clubhouse.
And thanks to Francis and Abe and Visual Communications. And thanks to all our friends across the Star Trek multiverse.
Yes, Trek Table is a service mark of J-Law Project, LLC. Thank you so much for coming to the Trek Table. Let's go ahead and close this ritual today by taking one more collective breath together. Go ahead and breathe in. And breathe out. As we've said, we hope that you will join us next Sunday, June 27th, as we dive into Season 2, Episode 1 of Star Trek Discovery, the episode entitled Brother. We'll meet you back here at 4 o'clock on the Trek Table episode on Outside In's YouTube channel. Till then, we'll hold Trek space for you. Have a great week. See you later.